Appreciate you coming on today. We've got today Robbie
Hodges, barrel man extraordinaire and a good friend of mine. Been barrel manning since I started, and I've got a gift for you today. This is a Texas round. It's from Texas Precious Metals.
Oh, well,
it's
thank you
our
so much.
here you go. I'll toss it to you.
There you go.
You're already behind the mic.
Heck yeah.
But it's a silver coin. Some people have them. Yeah, you can open it. It's
Right
that
on.
that sleeve there.
Don't watch me get embarrassed
tight.
trying to open the dang thing.
Yeah.
I get it, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's solid silver, and
Really? That is
yeah.
so nice. Thank you so much. Going in the new house.
There you go. Oh, you got a new house.
Yep. Just got one about 4 months ago. Moved to Granbury.
That's right. You told me you moved
Yeah,
over there.
I got sick of living on top of wheels for 17 years. That's all I did. You know, I was a nomad, and you know, they used to. Mike Mathis one year I was getting an award out there at the finals, and he goes, "That Robbie Hodges, anybody, he's from anywhere that has a 50 amp plug."
That's true enough. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot of rodeo cowboys.
Oh, yeah, it is. So I put in 350 amp plugs so I can start paying back. You know, I'm kind of like,
Okay,
so.
you're not even going to charge them.
No, heck no, they can just stay there. But I ain't got but about 1/10 of an acre. It's a lake lot, you know. But
Gotcha.
they don't care. They'll all pull up there and go to the lake.
Just enough room to back in to their
Yes.
spot.
Yes. And then there's 2 barking dogs over there, so they won't stay long. You know how they like to sleep.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Tommies too, or just
whoever,
you know,
if you can get in there and get turned around, you should see me turning around 60 feet of rolling death about 3 o'clock in the morning. All the neighbors, they're all happy with me trying to turn my camper in there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So not even just real cowboys. Tommies can show up as well.
Anyway,
so,
yes, exactly. We'll even let the underprivileged. So
But you still got a lot of rodeos.
I do about 40 a year. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
as busy as I've ever been. You know, they keep dangling that carrot, and I keep going.
Yeah.
I average about 40 of them and about 30 music gigs a year now. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of after parties, and that's
Yeah.
kind of been a fun little adventure, just something to break up the monotony.
How many of them overlap?
Oh, over half of them, you know, they'll
Okay.
call, you know, people used to say, you need to concentrate more on your rodeo. And I got this guitar deal going, you know, and people want to have a good time. So I just add an after party with it.
Yeah.
And every year at Burwell, me and Rump have swapped out we have a 10-year 5 and 5, but I play every Wednesday night at the beer garden there.
Oh, good.
Whether I'm in or, you know, whether I've got the rodeo that year or not, I go by there, and usually I'll jump in there and pack the barrel for Rump on a Wednesday night, give him a break. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So you get to sound good. Everything's cool. So you get to play guitar. It's, I mean, that's when you're really hitting a home run, because you know, if you're barrel manning and you're playing,
double dipping a little bit, you know, and I'm still at the point where I'm not, you know, it's not a $30,000 gig at the end of it, you know, but
Right.
I'm, you know, I mean, it pays the gas money, and it's, I don't do that. I do it because it's so much fun, man.
Right.
I've always been, when I was a little kid, I didn't have much, you know, over in Georgia, and I remember I wanted to be a performer, you know, and now I've beat myself into submission enough to play the guitar that I got a few songs out. And, you know, it started like most of us guys, like, I mean, Kojo and every one of them, they were campfires, you know. And so it's
which one do you get more excited about these days?
you can't fake the guitar stuff, so it's out of the comfort level a little bit, you know. So probably that, you know, I mean, unless it depends on if you're at Benny's. You know, that one's exciting.
Yeah.
So, you know, the fighting bulls and the stuff like that still get the old blood flowing, but you know.
Right.
And but that guitar playing, it's sometimes it's kind of scary, and it's, you know, now that it's moving up a little bit too, and playing like 2 years ago, Chancey got snowed in at a show down in Texas City. And I was in the middle of a show, and Blue Jeans comes over and he says, "Hey, Robbie, what's your voice there?" And I went, "Why?" He goes, "Well, Chancey snowed in Colorado and won't be there." And I said, "Well, you want me to go get him?" And he goes, "No, actually, I want you to play the show." And I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
You know, which could have been, and I had nothing to do but lose there. I mean, because I get him off the stage. Where's Chancey?
Well, and they're expecting Chancey.
Exactly. But
Anybody that replaces him, they might be mad at.
Yes, and I was so worried about that. But I'm going to tell you what a good cowboy he is. He puts out a 4 or 5 minute video from the airport in Denver, snowed in, and he's like, "This is Chancey Williams. I just want you guys to know I've been doing this for 25 years, and this is the first show I've ever missed." And he's like, I'm snowed in. The bus is stuck. We won't be in Texas City tonight. And he said, but go out and support Rockin' Robbie Hodges. And I thought that was very classy, and it changed the whole dynamics of the show then, and like I did one of his songs. And, it was just kind of a cool whole deal, whole setup.
And it was a big showing out. A lot
it
of
was
people.
Pretty. I mean, it was cold and wet. November in South Texas. How that can be. But yeah, it was great, and we had a really good time. And that's the most money I ever made. I can promise you that, playing guitar.
And you play a lot with Luke, don't you?
I was Luke. Yeah, I was Luke Kaufman's guitar player or lead player for 8 years. God, I miss those. You remember when we used to do the ones at Vegas, 10-day. Some of the funniest things came out of that.
You miss a 10-day show?
Yeah.
Really? Dang.
I do. The last 2 or 3 years in Vegas, I've played Smith's party, there, and I get out of there because, it's just, it was irreplaceable some of the times we had. We had like what they had, the Midnight Bull riding there, and it was so funny. Like, we would never get started till 10 or 11 o'clock, and then we would play a while, and then we'd have the Midnight Bull riding, which was pretty fun. I had 2 bouncers to keep me from getting beat up. I was the Duncan Booth clown, of the bull riding, and we'd do that, and then we'd go back and play. We wouldn't get done. We'd do 10 nights there, plus we had just come off of a tour with Matt Borden usually, and Luke. And there was, we had the band, we had Al and Raven, and we'd do like 22 shows in 28 days between PBR finals when they were there. And then we'd end it with 10 days in Vegas. And that was.
Dang, that is wanting it.
Yeah.
You love it. If you like that, because I feel like the only people that crave 10 performances are the 15 guys entered in each event.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
or girls.
It's
but because most people that are doing anything outside of participating in the rodeo for those 10 days in Vegas, by the time that 10th perf comes around, they are ready to be done.
Yeah, I remember that happened to me too. Funny story about that. The year I did the finals, all the excitement was the first night, because I remember rolling barrel down there and I'm waiting to go in, and Kenny Bergeron's down there,
2011?
2010.
When he made it?
Yeah.
Okay,
and,
10.
Yeah, so we're sitting down there, and, they don't even let you come out of the tunnel until, barrel racing. You just stay in there in the locker room. Well, that was back when they had, Coors had a floating keg back there. So and me and Charlie Too Tall would sit back there and, it was much fun, golly. And I remember looking at Kenny, and he looked at me, you know how he talked, because he's old Cajun. He said, Hodge, I ain't sure this is a great idea. And I said, I don't know about you, but I'm pissing my pants right now. And I said, if you could help me roll this barrel back up this tunnel, we'll get out of here and we can be fishing at your house. But first night, 5th bull out, Clayton Williams hangs his foot in the rope and on Cajun Monkey. And I'm so far back, I didn't know he was beating the crap out of him, And I go packing it off in there. When I get about 20 feet from it, I notice, oh my gosh, it's his foot, So I just turned off. Bull comes over and hit me. It was just a luck, That was all the excitement, And I made a few picks during the week, but them guys are so good. Yeah. But by round 6, I ain't never told this story, so it's too late to get me now. But Ben Lee and Kevin Ellis from over around, in back east, they're the ones that got me started working the barrel in Okeechobee. So about that 6th round, I figured out which bulls were hot and which ones weren't. So I took my cell phone out there in the arena during the bull riding, and we were doing something. I just ducked down in the barrel, and I called Ben Lee. And I said, hey, Ben. He goes, what? And I said, what are you doing right now? And he goes, I'm sitting here watching the rodeo. I said, "You hear Boyd talking?" "Yeah." "Do you hear him over my phone?" "You're in the arena." I squatted down there and I was talking to him on the phone.
That's hilarious.
That's how monotonous it gets, you know?
Gotcha.
And, but by then I was bored. Cause,
Yeah.
you know, I knew what was going to hit us and I knew what didn't. And back then I was, you know, full of it and I wanted to go get everything I could, you know.
Would that have been Clay Collins? And that wouldn't have been Diefenbach.
No, it was Deef. It was Deef's last year, maybe.
Okay.
It was Deef, Kenny.
Was it Tuck's first year?
And Tuck's second year.
Okay.
Tuck's second year, yeah. Boy, that's been a long time ago. Hasn't
Right.
it? That's hard to believe. But that old boy the other day when we were working, he sure didn't act like he was old, did he? He was.
Oh, Tuck?
Yeah.
You know, he's got that bald head that makes him look like he's got some age on him.
You know, it
But-
does. But he's
not even 40 yet, is he?
I think he's getting there.
If he's
right at
if
it.
he's at 40, he's at 40. But it's really just the baldness that makes him look
Makes
so.
him look over.
Yeah.
Boy, he's an athlete. You know, a lot of athletes
He is
are bald-headed. I'm
Yeah.
sort of bald-headed. That makes kind of me an athlete.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah.
What about you and this barrel work? I'm so proud of
Yeah.
you.
What'd you think of that?
I thought it was awesome. You know, it's hard to go after being a 1,000-time world champion like you are. You know?
Yeah.
In fact, when they found out you were, you know, fixing to be a barrel man, they asked me to call me to give my barrel man of the year 2 buckles back. And I said,
Yeah.
"Why?" And they said, "We're going to give it to Dale."
Yeah. I apologize for that.
It's
yeah.
okay, buddy. I
It-
mean,
to
I
be hon-
understand.
I mean, they did that with just the rumor of me getting in a barrel.
That's what they said. They said,
Yeah.
"Well, you know, we're going to need to recall all
just
those."
in case.
Because, yeah, I mean, you know, this year and next is what your buckle's going to say.
Yeah, here recently. Yeah, it says here recently.
Yeah. I thought you did really good in
No,
that.
I appreciate
and you'll get your wheels under you a little bit and you'll start.
Man, I'm going to be honest. You know, like whenever between riding bears, broncs, bulls, and fighting bulls, I think college is when I did all of them the most. I was still fighting some bulls. I was about to get my pro card, but then in college I entered all 3. And during that time, it used to just like it was just a non-issue, the thought of getting in a barrel. I never did, but like to me, it was like the least scary thing a person could do in the arena. In my mind,
Right,
like that's
right.
the way I viewed
Absolutely.
it, because you know the crowd goes nuts when somebody hits a barrel.
Oh, they love it.
And the first time I got in a barrel in a serious situation was during the Netflix show, and Webb was here, Leon Coffey was here, and they put me in my barrel, which is ancient.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the first time I realized, like, no, this is serious. You know, Webb brought a fighting bull, like a real one. And now also on the other hand, like we're filming me in the barrel,
Right.
and it's Cody Webster.
Yeah.
And so I'm not overly nervous.
Right.
But I did begin to realize, like, oh, you know, you could get seriously injured doing this.
It's, if you want to see the worst bullfighter in the world, let me get out of the barrel.
There you
I
go.
am mortified. I mean, I get behind it, I get to shaking, and then most of those guys will say, "You want to see me the scaredest you ever see me? Watch me get in the barrel." You know what I mean? It's 2 completely opposite things. And I mean, you fought bulls too, so you know, I mean, you control your destiny.
And maybe that's what made me underestimate it, was because, like, it can't be any worse than getting hit out in the arena without the barrel. And even as a bull rider, it's kind of a little bit of an island of safety in your mind. You know, you see bull riders go behind it. But fast forward to my first Buck Jam Bucktown qualifier event, and that barrel, I guess, I don't know if it's the guy's first time to have made one, but like it's the hard foam and it's
Oh, I
about
know.
an inch. And so it feels like, I mean, I'm in the cab of a truck is how big it felt.
Oh, it is. When I looked at it the other day, Dale, I was like, we need to choke this thing up a little bit.
It's a nice barrel.
Oh, it is
to,
very nice,
outside
very
of
well
that.
crafted.
But good heavens, that bull hit me. Nothing was hitting me, and then about the 10th bull,
Oh,
it
no.
just started.
Yeah.
And boy, they sent me flying across that arena rolling, and it's not the fall, it's the sudden stop. And it hit that,
They hit them panels.
hit
Yeah.
that pipe fence. And I mean, I hit the side of that barrel and come out of there seeing stars.
Yeah, I knew. That's when I said, that's when I called you and I said, we got to fix this thing. And I try to tell these young kids that are, it's kind of a dying art a little bit, but I've got some guys that, that's the best thing about this game is they'll call, and they'll ask me questions about, what I need to do here or how do I do. First thing, pad the rim of that barrel, because when you're working hard and you don't think, and you don't get down, you hit that metal.
The rim.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you'll notice, like the other day, I had yours, plus it kind of cocoons you in there a little bit, and once we got that padding out of mine and you put it in yours, it was more comfortable.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a Cadillac.
I'm leaving it here for you.
Super heavy.
Yeah. Well,
after
it
that,
is.
but worth it. I just didn't move it.
You trade a little bit of weight for,
life.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the worst wrecks I had was either getting thrown out of it. And then one time at Mercedes, they were fighting cast horns down there, and I had one go in to get me, and that's why I don't wear the helmet, because I tried a helmet after all them concussions, but I can't look out. It's like having a ball cap on or something. That's why I wear a derby. I can't look out and see where they are, and I can't get either one end or the other of that barrel, But at Mercedes one time, Manuel brought some cast horns.
What's a cast horn?
It's where they put them big cast on their horns and make them about that much longer. They put cast material like you would a fiberglass or whatever, and they're very sharp. And one of them dug in there and tried to get me. He saw me. He was digging me out like you do an oyster, And I'm doing everything I can to get really small. And he hooked up under my pad and caught the padding, went through the padding, and sucked the padding out of my barrel with me in the dang thing. And I'm like, the next thing I know, it happened really quick. He just ran in there, scooped it, sucked the padding out, and is running around with my padding on. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get back in this fight right here? Because I don't have any padding. It's metal, But thank God they got him caught and got my padding put back in it. But
good thing he didn't eat the oyster.
No, exactly. But it was like digging a little clam out.
He was going to get his cracker.
He was. He was
and
supposed to
horseradish.
get this cracker. You ain't kidding. And
have you ever had him kick a leg in?
Well, that's the worst injury, and I'm still kind of going through it, man. At Prescott, like the guy old Robbie. Now, I'm telling you, it's just a freak deal. The third, I think it was a couple perfs in. One of Sammy's bulls, he'd kind of cleared everybody, and he was chasing Bo, and I whistled him up. We had talked about that, when you need him, and I called him up, and he starts towards me. And Rudy Burns taught me this a long time ago. He taught me two things. He said, dude, before you get hit, turn sideways if you can. And the other thing, carry that derby. Or he takes that little pink cat, That's why I don't wear a big one in the barrel. And he said, throw it, and it'll get them off their lead when they're coming, when they're fixing to smoke you. Well, this one, everything worked. You can watch the video on it. And he hit it, and he rolled it over. And as he rolled it over about the second time, it's really cool in slow motion. But he hit it, and he stuck his foot in the barrel all the way in. And then he rolled it and went up over the top of it. And the only thing I remember, Dale, is I remember yellow hair and dew claws. And out went the lights. And when I woke up a minute or so later in there, he had hit me right on top of my head. And I remember Bo coming to me, and Ty Atchison put the rope on him. I mean, Plum had him choked down because he was coming back for it again. And that'd have been really bad because I wasn't, I was out, so I wasn't holding on. And when I came up, I was swinging at Bo because I thought I was still in the fight. The last thing I remember was one getting in there with me. And I wasn't sure it was Bo. It was, looking at me. And I woke up, and I'm trying to poke him in everything moist I can find, eyes, nose, whatever, to get him out of my barrel. And Bo's like, hey, man, Rob, it's okay, buddy. You okay? And I'll never forget, I remember hearing Randy, and he's like, how's my little buddy from Georgia? I remember that. And I go in there in the room, and Justin, guys, and it had compressed me a half inch. I said, every time I turn, because it just jammed me, and you're in a precarious position. It jammed everything. And I said, I need you to lay me down on that table there with a towel like you see them videos of them chiropractors and go to yanking and let's get all this back. And I felt it all the way to my sack. I mean, it was like, and it picked me back up, you know. And it's still, that concussion was 18 of them, and it was the worst one. And I have a lot of trouble with, like, I'm getting better at it now, but I had a lot of trouble with, like, flashing lights and noise, you know, like it'll the sensory stuff in it, you know. That's why I tell you, man, pad that thing. You go get all of them you want to get, but
yeah, no, and you know, you started that story saying it was a freak accident, and if you've never been in a barrel or never been around rodeo, somebody's like, well, that's not a freak accident. Like, of course that's going to happen, you know. And my old traveling partner Jeremy and I were talking about Jeremy Melanson.
yeah.
And he went a lot with, more than me, he went with Jacobs, Crawley.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Jacobs had that thing a couple of years ago where in, I think it was Greeley, one of them Benny horses smashed him and broke his back and almost paralyzed him.
Sure
they
did.
put a rod in it. 17 months later, he came back. They got the rod out. He came back, rocking along, doing great. Won the first round of Fort Worth this year. The second round, True Grit just takes a misstep, falls.
Saw that.
He hangs for half a jump, lands, and he's fine until that horse steps on his back and pushes away.
Yeah.
And it breaks the wing off the side of that same vertebrae that had surgery. And that was the touch and go part, because
Sure.
everybody knew, you know,
Where's it
Jacobs
going?
had this back
Yeah.
surgery. And, you know, because he's, you know, with a wife and 2 kids, he's kind of juggling, like, what do I do? You know, I had this injury, but also of the rough stock events, it's saddle bronc and
You can do it till you're 50 if
and
you
we
want.
know as bronc riders, the way that horse fell, stepped on him, etc., like a little bit of a freak accident.
It really was, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
especially at his level, you know, he's not getting on a colt
no,
at a school.
right? We're at Fort Worth, you know. and
Right. But to the outside looking in, you're like, that's not a freak accident. It's a bucking horse.
Part of it, boys. Part
And,
of it. You
it's
signed up to be tough. That's
Yeah.
a bunch of crap.
It's this weird.
Yeah, we're trying to stay alive.
I get
here.
both sides of it. You know, as a
I do.
rodeo cowboy, he's like, I got to keep going. But then as like from the outside looking in, like, well, of course you retire, you know? And I think eventually the thing that happens is you get both of those conversations happen in the same guy's head.
It
You know, when
does.
you're young, it's like, no, it's not a freak accident. It's never going to happen to me. And then by
I'll
the
be
time
good.
you're almost done, maybe
Well,
it's just like,
And he's been there, done it, just like you. You know,
but what about number 18? Did you say it was Phoenix?
Prescott.
Prescott. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
There's not, I don't think there's even a rodeo in Phoenix, but what about it? Was it because it was real bad? Was it because he finally got a foot in there and that was something you were always nervous about? What about it made it so monumental for you?
Just the freakness of it. I'll send you the video of
Yeah,
it. But
send
it's
me that.
really, it looks like a sprint car wreck. This barrel's just tumbling, you know, very slow, like you're watching a sprint car wreck in slow motion, and you can just see it. I fought every bull in the country. You know, I fought the meanest ones. I fought, you know, herds down in Okeechobee. That's why I got the NFR back when they let the guys you protect vote instead of the popcorn salesman. But that's another story we'll go over in a minute. But I've never had that happen. I've had a couple of them teabag me where they got their back feet in, you know, and I could kind of see it coming, like because they're bucking, and you can, you know. This one here, I had no idea. I was just in for the ride, and when he stuck that front foot in there, it hit me right here.
And when you're going end over end, it's not like you could prepare. I mean, like, what are you going to
there's
do? Go to
nothing-
the other end?
No,
Well,
you can't. Well,
you're
you don't know
going-
what. Yeah, I mean, it was, and it happened within 5 seconds. You know, it's not like slow motion. You know, oh, watch his foot. You know, it's like when I was doing line work. Well, if you're going to fall, catch yourself. Well, if I knew I was going to fall, I wouldn't went to work that day. You know, it just, things like that happen so. It's a freak thing. Like number 15 or 16 was at Pasadena. I was working bullfights, and I had one hit me funny with Wayne Ratley, and it sent me across there, kind of in the air. It flipped me. When it did, it shot me out of the end of the barrel, and I hit the wall, and that was lights out.
Oh, you hit the wall without the barrel
Yeah, I came
around you.
out. Well, not all the way out, just enough, you know,
Yeah,
to get
enough.
my head out. You know, because you know as well as I do, you're not about that far. You know, but you're always, and this is me. I'm always looking. You know, that's why I can't wear the helmet. They really tried 100X. Everybody was really good. You know, wanting to send me a helmet, but it was like this, and it was worse on me that I couldn't see.
Do you feel like 18 knockouts, how have those affected you outside of the arena? Or have they?
It's been very tough now.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm feeling them worse. I got a cool girl, and she'll look at me and go, "You need to power down for a few minutes. Go sit somewhere dark." She can tell because I'll get I don't know how to describe it other than it goes woo, 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 woo in your head. And it's like this pulse. Like if there's lights flashing, like these don't bother you. But like at Pasadena this year, and you know, it wasn't about 4 months after it happened, they have a salute to all the, you know, first responders. So they got 30 police cars in the arena, you know, and it's just like pop, 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 you know, these flashing lights. And she looks at me and goes, you need to go hide for a minute? And I'm like, yeah, you know, because I was fixing to do the rodeo. And these woo-woos start coming back, you know, and it's like, woo, 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 woo. I was like, man. The biggest problem with a brain injury or, you know, or getting this, I've caused it. I mean, heck, I could have been an insurance salesman, you know, but the biggest problem is that it's a hidden injury, you know.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
broke
not
my
obvious.
leg. Boy, I feel sorry for that guy, you know. But people don't see the hidden injuries of head injuries. That's why I'm always on these young kids about padding them barrels up. You know, if you're going to work them, it only takes one time, you know. So if you're going to work in barrels, pad them rims up on them things, you know. And I tell them a lot of times, back in the day, you know, I was full of piss and vinegar. I was going to go get everything I could. Every bullet had to hit me or I wasn't, you know, I'm going to give their check back.
Yeah.
And then through working with Jason Farley, in my opinion, and Andy North, the two kings of barrel work, you know, I love them. Hell, I got a picture of Farley on my wall. And we kind of got together and developed a little bit of what we can do to prevent getting blasted, you know, and there for a while, these young kids won't do these tricks at these bullfights, you know. So hey, Robbie, set your barrel 8 feet from the, you know, the buck and shoot. I'm going to jump a pogo stick over it while on fire with a cape on. It's going to be spectacular. I said, well, it's going to suck for me because when they're fresh, they're trying to kill you.
They hit hard.
Yeah, so
some of them older bulls get a little leery of hitting it because they know it hurts.
They do, but them young calves, when they're going to bust a calf, you know, I mean, I'm like, they don't know. And I mean, from 8 or 10 feet.
That's a lot of speed.
It is, you know, and I mean, and they bust it. And then it got to where me and Andy and them were talking about it. And Andy finally said, no, here's what's going to happen. I am going to sit over by that fence. And you're going to fight like the third monkey trying to get on the ark. And then when your legs are tired, I'm going to come get you.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing in the arena wants to kill all of us. And I'm the second biggest thing in the arena. And if you can't stop the second biggest thing from getting killed, because what them guys don't understand, and it's kind of been bred out of them a little bit, is, you know, don't go to the barrel. But you watch all the old bullfights, that was part of the skill. And a lot of them guys lost a bunch of bullfights, even at the NFR, going to stand your barrel man back up. You know, it was, but the kids now, it's just been bred out of them. They don't know. It's not their fault, you know, but the best part of this whole
It's been
deal,
bred out of them to go to the barrel.
Yeah, to work the barrel,
Yeah.
the art of it. You know, some of them guys say, I don't know how to work the barrel. I said, well, don't bring it out there. You know, I'll go get you if you get in a bind because you're hit anyway, you know. But I'd tell them, I say, you know, when we do those tricks and stuff, I said, if I get down, I'm a waste of your time. You know, let me hide over there, let you do all your, you know, stuff you're going to do. And then when I watch them legs getting bent, I'm going to come get you and then call me in there. But 30 seconds into one of them hot Mexicans, they still got it.
Oh, for sure.
They're packing a load when they hit you. That was part of the reason I retired from it. It was from the bullfights. You know, I'll still go get everybody in the barrel now. I love it. You know, I love working Benny's pen. I love working down in Okeechobee because they're fun. You can whistle them up, you can call them. You're getting hit, you know. But them Mexicans, man, when they hit you, they pack a load.
Yeah.
You know, they just, especially, I guess the rankest, I fought Borbas one time in Vegas the year before I had the finals at that World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Smets put that deal on?
Mm-hmm.
And Borbas bulls were about that wide. And I'm telling you, it was like getting hit with a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day, said, what's the meanest bull, you know, or bulls you ever fought? And I guess 022 Hornet or Black Carpet of Benny's. You remember Black Carpet?
No.
Tonganoxie, Kansas. I was working there, and Matt Baldwin was fighting bulls. You know, he's the slowest, fast guy, most underrated guy in the business, you know.
For sure.
And he goes out there, and Clay was there, and there's just two of them then. And
Collins?
yeah. Everybody gets hooked. I mean, they're over there, and Black Carpet is up on the fence, and he is trying to get to everybody he can. I said, well, hell, I guess if they got it, I better go over there and get it. That son of a gun hit me, and I'm tell you what, I about come out of my shoes. He hit me so hard. And after that, Benny noticed, and he goes, son, I seen you go over and get them boys. And after that, me and Benny's been pretty close. He loves to run over me, and I don't mind taking it. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's our relationship. Of all the two people that shouldn't get along is me and Benny, but we
Right.
do, you know. And then he'll send one. He had I don't know if you remember him or not, but he had like a mouse colored with big old horns.
Mm-hmm.
And I fought him in Abilene one time. All these are, you know, show sellers. They're not like, we're not having a competition, but he'd always send them. Whistle bull, about a month prior to that, the hardest I ever got just smoked was by Benny, by a black bull. I never saw him again. And about 30 seconds later was the hardest I'd ever been hit because that mousy. And he hit me so hard. I mean, it was, and one of the guys had told me, said, watch this mousy. You know, it's like, I'll show him how to do it. Well, I was way back. I mean, I went out there a little ways because Benny, you know, that's Benny saying, son, get him over there. You know, don't get in the way of the barrel. I appreciate you, you know. And so I'm back a little bit. And I figured out right then when he hit me that hard, if a Volkswagen's going to hit you, do you want it in first gear or do you want it in fifth gear?
Right.
You know, so I started moving up. So I had him in Abilene, and me and Tuck and I can't remember who the other one was.
Does Weston usually fight?
That was even for him. See what happens when you get hit on the head?
Yeah.
Lives
This
Chuck
Swish.
Swisher.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think Swish.
So I was like, we fixing to fix this mousey. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go out there about 15, 20 feet. And when they call for this sucker, you let him punch me as hard as he wants to. And I'd had old Ironside, my old barrel that I had at the finals, you know. And he hit me, and it kind of, you know, with him, and he went on over. He'd only hit you once, and he hit me and kind of at him. And I got stood back up pretty quick, and I went after him. And I could chase him around with it then.
Yeah.
And then the end all was, it was Lawton, me, and Wace. And I see old blue horn. He had always had blue horns because he just beat them old blue bucking shoots up. You know, his old horns were blue and he's mousy. I got that video, and I was watching it the other day. It come back up. And I said, Wacey, I figured this sucker out. Now we're fixing to break him right here. Benny's going to be mad when he hears this. But so I let him, and I timed it, and I let him do it. I got to rocking that barrel. And I let him get right to me. And when he did, I braced up and I leaned over, and he hit that rim of that barrel. And he was like, yay, 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 yay. And I mean, I've got the video. I'm chasing. I said, come on, you want some more? And he'd shake his old head.
That's funny.
And I broke him. I guess I broke him from, but boy, he'd punch it.
Yeah.
But 022 Hornet of Seth Loudon down there, you know, them sergeant stripes. That's what got me the finals, because back then it was voted on by the guys you saved, the bull riders. And then, you know, our brilliant directors decided, well, maybe if, you know, why don't we, you know, they kept saying, oh, we're going to lose the vote if we don't. So they let the announcers vote. They let, you know, the bullfighters vote, and took the bull riders out of it. And, you know, a lot of people don't know that, but they didn't vote for like 4 or 5 years. you know, I've been doing this a long time, Dale, and I've never saved a rodeo announcer in the barrel. You know, and them guys, you know, and there were 60 of those guys voting and only 15 or 20. You know, and they use this excuse, oh, we're going to lose the vote and they're going to decide Las Vegas fans. It's in the contract. Once Blue got in there and found all this out, he's like, I call BS, you know. Maybe
What do you mean lose the vote?
They were, that our previous directors were like, oh, we're going to lose the vote. And if those guys don't vote, we're going to lose the vote, you know, and of who gets to be the barrel man, and Las Vegas Events is going to pick it. And it'll be Flint. Well, good. Flint does a good job, you know, but that wasn't true. I don't know if it was an agenda they had where they thought they might get a shot at Born. I would have had the finals, and I'm not. You know,
I got you. Yeah.
I would have had it several years because I was the only one working the barrel.
Yeah, it sounds like
That was my shtick. And
what's that movie, 61 Asterisks with Mickey Mantle? Yeah,
Yes.
It sounds like there's maybe an asterisk, like you might have kept going.
Yeah, I could have. You know, I feel like at least 3 years I didn't need it. But the guys that did it, they're doing great. But, you know, a couple of years there, they didn't even have handles. You know, after I went in there and smoked them, you know, or got killed off there to finals working the barrel. Some of the best saves you never saw because
What do you mean they didn't have handles?
they didn't have handles in their barrels. They didn't move the barrel.
Yeah,
You know, it was like,
that's what I thought you meant.
look out, you're getting hooked. You're getting hooked. You know, I'm like, oh. So there's a little bit of kick in the sack, you know, to take that away. Because, I mean, and, you know, I wanted to protect the guys. That game at the NFR is not comedy. John has done awesome, and sometimes the lights go out. Remember the year, and he had to actually work. And now, you know, but that was just Sean's way. You know, he didn't want you interfering.
Yeah.
You know, first time I moved the barrel, it had been moved in ever was at the NFR, the first round when that happened. You know, the wreck happened with Clayton. And here they all come at the end of it. I didn't know. I just naturally went down there and got them, you know.
Yeah, you bet.
Like what you're supposed to do. And I'm up there in the suite, in the Coors suite, and Pete Coors up there, you know, and they're all like, holy cow, you got to do it your first night, you know. And here come all the little cronies. Oh, Sean wants to see you. You're probably going to get fined. You may even get kicked out. You know, you're not supposed to move the barrel at the NFR. I'll never forget when I walked out that door, Pete calls me back and he says, hey, if you get fined, I'm paying it. I said, why? And he goes, it's the first time we've seen our barrel in 25 years on TV.
Dang.
So I go down there and I'm nervous and they're just face barking. Oh, you know, because this is my first night. And I was the first nobody to ever have the NFR. You know, they won't talk that way to Keith. He'd sock you in the nose. You know,
Right.
And Troy had it and then Flint, you know. So I came through it, you know. I went down there and they were like, oh, no. So, I mean, they're trying to follow me in the room where I'm having the meeting with, because Sean like talked to you. And I didn't know. It was the first night. So Sean sitting there and it's pretty scary. You know, old Buck, he's a little scared. And he looks and he goes, well, let me tell you. He said, a couple of things I need to really go over with you. I said, yes, sir. You know, and I was ready for it. You know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how my reputation is going to stand getting fired for working, you know. And he goes, the clapping a little late, you know, let him call the name. And he said, as far as working that barrel, it sure is good to see a guy go down there and get them boys.
Dang.
And I went, you got to be kidding me. That's all I heard all the way down that daggum slowest elevator on the planet.
Were they joking or did
no,
they
they were serious. They were like, well, they'd never seen it, you know. And it's never the boss. It's always the guys with them, you know. And
I didn't know if maybe your first night they were pranking you.
They don't think they didn't. Don't you think for a minute they didn't prank me a bunch.
Yeah, but just that particular thing was
I
them.
was scared.
Yeah.
I really was, Dale. I was scared I was going to get fired or fined, you know.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's really nice to see somebody go down there and get them boys and they get in a wreck. Don't you make me have to tell you to back that barrel up. And I said, no, sir, you won't have to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I would run down there and make a save, haul butt back, and I had a ring, you know, where you do the same thing. When you move in there and you find that ring again, that's your
for sure
back two spot. And it was even with Sean, about halfway in the arena. Once he got comfortable, that ring would get a little closer. And by round 5 or 6, hell, I was up there with Boyd and Bob.
Yeah.
You know.
You bet.
And that's funny watching. You want to see something funny. You watch Bob back when he would get rolling. And him and Boyd standing up there. Because you're right at the podium with him.
Right.
It's so little there. And Bob would be like, well, we're going to put the spaghetti with the soup, and then we're going to put it in the back of the wagon and let it roll down the hill. You know?
Yeah.
And Boyd would just look over there at him. And that look was one of the main things I remember of the finals was
Boyd looking at
Boyd
Bob.
just be like, "You want to explain that?"
Yeah.
You know, God, I miss those days, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, we're losing those legends, man.
Oh, man.
Hadley.
Yeah. It's,
You know,
yeah.
we've
Well-
got great announcers coming up. I mean, we got great clowns and stuff. They're, you know, they're getting into the.
Was
you
it
know,
Rick Young passed, and then another who else was it?
Snuffy Chancellor.
Yeah, I thought there was another rodeo legend that passed recently. Anyway,
Another barrel man. I don't,
yeah, I don't know about a barrel man,
I
just
hope
rodeo.
not, 'cause
Anyway,
I just those guys. The only thing I ever wanted out of this business, because those were my heroes in the '80s. If I could back time up, which we can obviously, I would have wanted to fight bulls with where Ted was and Rudy. You know, Rudy Burns and Ted are my heroes.
Yeah.
You know,
man, I loved hearing Rudy Burns. Golly,
he is the only
so
guy.
funny.
He can say anything in the world. I get in trouble for saying a Nancy Pelosi joke, you know, and it's been hung on me, that stigma of, you know, Robbie's not real safe, you know, blah, 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 which is funny, you know. And I you know what I do now? I embrace it.
Yeah,
When you hire me, you won't have a good time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And we might lean on it a little bit, but so what? It's worked for, you know, I got 40 for the last, you know, 20 years of having my card, so
Yeah.
it ain't going away. But Rudy,
he would tell the same joke and it'd be funny
Why? How
every
did he do
time.
that?
Every time.
golly, it was so. I remember being a kid and riding my horse in Montgomery, Alabama, to the rodeo, 150 miles on a trail ride, and
Dang,
going
that's
down
a-
there.
That's a haul.
Yeah, dumb. And I remember being there, and I was sitting at 310 Pie at Montgomery. You know, it was the wedge seats, watching the most deadly combination there ever was Rudy, Liesel, and Phil Gardenhauer. They were Carol Burnett, Tim Conway, and Harvey Korman, you know, to me. They were impossible, just the stuff that they came up with.
Yeah.
You know, and Phil was that batter, you know,
Yeah.
he kept that cake together, man. Oh, what a combination. And that's why I became a rodeo clown. I wanted
Right.
to be that, you know, and Rudy's always been there, you know, when I needed him in the barrel work and stuff. But that 022, to tell you how bad, back to that 022 Hornet, Rudy wanted him banned. And by God, if Rudy Burns wants one banned, you better watch him. He called me. I was heading down there. He goes, dude, now let me tell you right now. But watch that 022 Hornet. He hooked my dummy up so high and it got hung in the roof. And I went, oh, crap. Bull knocked me out 3 times.
Must
out
have
of the
been
4.
Jasper. It's not a very high roof.
No, yeah, very similar. Where's Okeechobee, though, when they moved it in for a
Oh,
little
yeah,
while?
yeah.
You remember when they moved it inside
Yep.
for a little bit? Now it's back outside. Now I guess they can go to the moon.
Who was it put that rodeo on down there and they got that plane? Who was it has the plane? That act where they put a guy on a bronc saddle on the
Slim
back of
Garner.
that? Is that who that was? That was in
Yes.
Okeechobee when I was there.
You didn't get in that saddle, did you?
No,
Okay.
they sent that boy the length of the arena.
Oh, yeah, you'd
that
skip
freaking
across there. I've skipped rocks.
Up,
Didn't
up,
go
up,
as
up, up,
far.
up.
Yeah. He
dude,
killed
what
more
a
people off.
crazy act.
I know. I think Wasey may have that thing now.
What kind of liability waiver would protect a person from putting a random stranger
Yes.
on the back of an airplane with no wings,
I
and then
know.
it just wheel around there and whip around in a circle?
That's so true. Like when they have money the hard way and that stuff, I get out of the arena because
Yeah.
I mean this is a professional sport.
and those people,
They think-
they come back and sue you.
Yeah, and beer, you know, helps that.
They're drunk and
Yeah,
they get in there.
and I'm like, and they'd be like, "Well, were you?" Nope, I was out of the arena then. That's
Yeah,
not my part of it. But
I like how JB did it with those
oh yeah,
4-weight heifers, 450
well,
pounds.
yeah, but these guys are using. I've taped on a lot of swim noodles on them fighting bulls. Funniest story, Dave Moorhead's. I don't know. Did you ever go to Edgewood, Iowa?
No.
Oh my God, it becomes the 4th largest town in Iowa, which ain't that big. But
Right.
anyway, Edgewood, Iowa, they used to do the money the hard way, and it was all drunks and fried chicken. I mean, that town is nuts when they have it. It's right in the middle of town. And one time they had the chip on him, you know, and Dave, he gets me to help him. We take these swim noodles on them horns, you know, where they just don't kill somebody. Well, they finally get this sucker about 60 people in the ring, and he's got his old tongue run out, you know, and he's over against the fence. Well, this big fat guy in a set of overalls decides, I'm going to ride the furry tractor.
Jumps on him.
Climbs the fence and sits down on him. Well, he's like, "Brr," you know, and he's tired and he's fought and his mind's about blown. Well, he's sitting up there and he's getting all this, you know, and when people start peeling out, you know, it's done. They've got the chip and everything. Well, the next thing you know, it's him and the bull.
Out in the middle of the arena.
Well, he walks out there because he's tired and he's like, look at me go. He gets out there about 50 feet and he kicks up and just slams this fat guy.
Dashboards him.
And beats the hell out of him. And the two bullfighters, and Dave's like, nope, let this go a minute.
Let this go on a minute.
And that sucker, he just walked out there just as casual. You know, he's got his little tongue, he's tired. You know, it's Mexican fine bull, stag probably. And he kicks up, and that kid goes right between his horns, and it was camp out city. He put a mailbox in his yard. And I laughed, and that's one of them things, you know, that thank God they didn't have cameras.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Thank God they didn't have a lot of cameras when I was hauling that Wolfpack bunch either.
Did you, it sounds like you've been with Benny quite a bit. You go with Smith's crew a lot?
I have been, and yes, and now it's kind of getting back because I love them guys. You know,
I do too.
You have to rotate. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. As a
we
barrel
all
man.
have one rodeo that we've been. You know, I've been at Pasadena for 15 years.
Yeah, but they can't all be like that. Yeah, it's a good point.
You're right. You know, everybody has one. You know, John has Ogden. Hell, he's been there.
Yeah.
You know, Rump has Austin, and you know, Leon had Houston for so long. You know,
And San Antonio.
and San Antonio. Yeah, and you know, there's that one that they just keep. But
Yeah.
the majority of the rodeos
You got to rotate.
out.
Yeah, it's a good
and,
point. Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because you know, you got to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
I get bored. I get bored telling the same.
Well, we talked about Mesquite the other day, and back when Smiths first got it, and
Yeah.
it was a 2-day deal, and golly, that was so fun on Friday night. Saturday night, everybody go home.
Yeah, you went home.
It's
Friday
over.
night, people don't realize it. Saturday night ain't the party night. That's cleanup night, you know?
Yeah, correct.
Friday night in that 8-second club.
Man,
I
oh
remember
man,
playing guitar in there, and we'd set up, and you know, and Jacob Moorhead would go get my dancing dolls and come through the bar, and it was some fun times.
yeah.
But, you know,
I remember the first time I heard "Tonight We Ride." Tom Russell's "Tonight We
Yes.
Ride" was Cody Demos on a microphone at the top of his lungs in the 8-second club.
yeah,
And
I remember that.
dang.
Pancho Villa.
Yeah,
Me and Luke used to do that one.
yeah.
That was always a
Heck, it
thing.
might have been you playing the guitar. There's no telling, but yeah, that.
I remember about
anyhow,
as much as
Smith's crew.
8-second club as you do, Cowboy.
There you go.
But
The Smiths crew, and then the Mesquite, and you know, it seemed like at the time when I was coming through there, every kid that college rodeoed in Florida decided to go to college at Athens and work for Stace.
they did.
And
I saw William Pittman the other day. I didn't know he lived on the ranch.
yeah,
there.
Levi McRae
Oh, yeah.
is now running the place, bull
Yep.
rider
Him and Clint.
out of Florida.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah.
Levi's he's the flank.
Mm-hmm.
He's Frankie Flankman. That's what I call him. And he's doing a good job. You know,
Yeah.
Stace is always, he's been cool.
Yeah.
It was cool to work for Stace. And I'm lucky I'm getting to do that again. You know, I've got Nashville again this year. You got to go there, man. That's the
Oh,
most
Music City. Yeah, they called me the other day. We're supposed to.
go. You stay with me.
Yeah.
I don't care. We'll go together. Whatever. You have to go see that. How in the hell that rodeo didn't get Rodeo of the Year?
Yeah.
20,000 people.
It's probably because everybody's mad that they took out Cody Webster.
Probably first bull.
Right.
I mean, this is a funny story about that. He first bull hangs it in the air, and he's like, "Bye, Cody," and
Yeah,
he's
turns
flying
him a
through
flip.
and he lands on his shoulder outside the arena because the
Right.
gates are open. He comes back in. He said, "I just broke my damn shoulder," and I'm like, "No, we have to go to bars and go hang out. No, do not start that nonsense. Go fix that thing." He said, "It ain't fixable." And
Yeah.
He was hurt, so I got to work a lot there. I'm kind of back. You know, I said, "Just."
Did he fight that rodeo?
Oh yeah, he never
yeah,
quit.
yeah.
You know,
and he came back so fast.
I know he did, but he's an athlete. He's like you and I. You know, I mean, we would come.
Oh,
back
yeah,
that
super
fast.
athletic,
Yes, and you know, your heart only beats so many times. That's what I tell him, boys. You know,
Your heart only beats so many
Yeah,
times.
why you gonna waste it jogging?
Yeah.
You know, you might need it running. But yeah, he did, and I really worked. I got to work a lot there, you know, because I mean, I was kind of backing.
Who did you fight
up.
it with, Nate?
No, it was Tuck and Webb.
Okay.
So we're sitting in the locker room, and we're all in there, and he's like, you know, he's hurt. I can tell. So we're all getting in there. We're sitting around picking guitars. Tim McGraw's nephew was there, and you know, we all sitting around in the because Webb likes to play too. He'll call me every week with a new song to learn for him or show him how to do it. You know, hell, he knows more about it than I do, but he just likes to do that. So
Yeah.
we're sitting in the locker room, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and he said, "I don't know who this is." And he sets it down. A few minutes later, picks that phone up, and he hits the voicemail on it. Cody, this is Reba. I just wanted to make sure you was all right.
Oh my gosh.
I know you got hurt there. Honey, I was making sure you was all right.
Dang, that's wild.
And I'm like, you were so lucky. If you'd have answered that, nobody would have believed you. But we have the voicemail. I mean, I was the first time he'd listened to it too, and he went, I said, you want to go for the other shoulder tomorrow and see if Miranda calls or
No
something?
kidding.
You know? But
Yeah,
you need to go to that rodeo, man. It's quite the experience. It was the best rodeo, including the NFR, I've ever done.
Yeah, I like going to Nashville anyway.
Yeah, and you go, and those people, man, they're, you know as well as I do. I mean, you've rodeoed here, and you've been to Oklahoma in the heat, and they're like, excuse me, sir, can you get out of the way so I can watch the bulldogging? You know, but when you go, that's one of my favorite things. I do those velocities, and I go to the rodeos back east. Those people don't know it like what the guy does. And, you know, you go to Chakotah, Oklahoma, and they're like, excuse me, you're in the way. The bulldogging's fixing to start. Shut up. You know,
Yeah.
there, those people are like, they don't even know what they're cheering after.
Right.
But they think it's finally brought real cowboys into Nashville, not hairdressers with hats, you know. And
Yeah, you bet.
man, it was so funny when he called back and said, well, they ain't having it without you, they said. So I said, well, let's go.
Good.
You know, and so I'm going back, you know.
Good.
It'll be time to let somebody else go. I want Sosby or one of them, you know. That's the thing. I ain't never done nothing that I wanted to hog. I want my buddies to enjoy.
For sure.
God. And I miss sometimes now the brotherhood that we had for about 10 or 15 years. You know, we're all in different directions now. And, you know, society has made this sport, you know, through social media and stuff like that. It's made us all, but it's also made it where you almost have to step on somebody's neck to be successful. You know, you have to be the top. You have to win every award, you know, if you're going to go to the finals, and you're going to do. And John is great. John is one of my best friends, and that's a brotherhood that'll never be broken, you know. And we were all there when his tragedies, you know, and I miss the camaraderie of talking. We used to have a 5-way call driving home, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody's so busy now, and, you know, and like I said, we can't even be close. And I want, if nothing else, before I retire from this business, I want it to get back like that, where it's me, Rump, John, you know, So's, and we'd always bring a guy up. We brought Farley up. Look at Matt Tarr. We brought him up, you know, and Ryder, you know, and them guys, and you always have to bring somebody up. You can't keep stepping on necks and holding these guys down, because it's getting to the point now we don't have enough barrel men. We don't have enough rodeo clowns, you know, and the quality, you know, we coach them along. That's why, you know, Matt's done, you know, I'm not saying we know it all, but that's who I want telling me how to do it. It's people with experience, you know.
Yeah.
I miss that, Dale. I really do. I miss my friends and the conversations. You know, I miss Rump all the time when we'd talk, and we'd, you know, and a couple years ago we all got together. We had a Broken Bow, and I was at Burwell. Rump was somewhere I can't, but we all showed up at Travis Shada's house. I call him Travis Pastrana, you know. But we all showed up at his house, and we all went to the Broken Bow bullfight and rodeo. Luke was there announcing, and we even had Burt Davis was there, and we give Burt hell because he was doing his act. And we were going to go out there and sit on the dog podiums, you know. Just you don't see that anymore. You know, everybody's so busy, or like I said, everybody's got to be on top of the game and on all the time. We can't just relax anymore. I miss that. I hope that comes back in the next 10 years before I, you know, hang this up.
I'm sure it will.
God, I hope so. You know, it's
You
just
got
like
10 years left?
I think so. The guys have gotten to where they're taking pretty good care of me. They know my knocks that I've taken, you know, and they're like, if we get a hot one, we'll call you in, but, don't pick any more fights. You don't need to, and it's a respect, and I love them guys for it. I love those bullfighters.
Well, and you probably like pushed yourself enough in situations where you didn't have to begin with.
I caused a lot
You're
of
probably,
fights.
well, I'm saying like, if you're going above and beyond, eventually you can just do your job that may not involve you taking a hit from a Volkswagen.
Exactly. I try to teach them, and I told you that the other day when we were sitting, I said a loud barrel is just as good as a blasted barrel, except you're still standing up, That's why I'm always like, if I need them, I'm hollering. Or if I'm talking to them, communication, you got to remember, when you're the barrel man, you're the hind catcher. You know why the hind catcher calls the game in baseball? Because he sees it all. I see stuff that they may be over there working, and they'll come by and say, thanks, man. You can get up now, I've always stressed that to them, and I'll tell them kids, even in them bullfights, you don't have to run out there and get killed. Make a little noise, give him about 3 steps ahead of him, and he's going to go back to the fight. You ain't got to run over there and be the guy that gets hit. I thought I did for so many years. And Webb and them were like, man, you ain't got to get blasted every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and when I was learning this, and I decided this is what I want to do, be a bullfight barrel man, I probably screwed a lot of them up going to get them because I thought they had to hit me.
Yeah.
And then I learned, hey, you can holler at them, make them look, give that guy a chance to get back up and get going. You can drift back to the fence. And you remember what I told you the other day about looking at them?
Mm-hmm.
I saw you do that a couple of times.
Yeah.
And they passed by you, didn't they?
Yeah, for sure.
If I'm going to fight you, I'm going to eyeball you. But
right.
if you just passive, and look at that, their shoulder and stuff, they walk right by you.
Yeah.
But if you whistle them up and you watch that old brisket, that's what Andy told me that. He said, you watch that old brisket, when they get mad, they'll go whoop, and it's coming.
Right. Yeah, I'm already like I'm 3 performances in on my barrel man career, and I'm already enjoying an evening where I don't get hit.
I'm so glad. I told you the day you want to get your card, I'll sign for it, and I'll give you 5 rodeos.
Man, shoot, I don't know. I may try to get a card and do like 1 rodeo. That would be my goal, is like have like, I don't even know, somebody like Music City wanted to call or something like that, and I go do like 1 or 2 rodeos.
Yeah.
Like that would be my.
Just to say you did. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. But
do this while it's still fun.
Yeah.
And, enjoy it. I've had some of the funnest jobs in the world when I worked for NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great job to get to do, but to have to do it sucked. In 2 years, I was like, I ain't driving that truck anymore.
Yeah.
Playing the guitar, like you said, on them 28 days of 22 shows, by about 16 or 17, it's like, I need a break.
Yeah.
Do something to make it fun. That's what I'm going to do, man. I'm not going to take what I've gained or earned in this business and do this at rodeos that I hate until it sucks.
Yeah.
That's why I try to enjoy it. I'll stop and look at the world's largest ball of string. I'll go find the bar. I go and have a good time at these. That's the only thing that saved me. And I try to tell these guys, you can unfun yourself right out of this game.
Yeah.
You can't be on the trail all the time. You got to go do fun stuff.
What's up, bro tater chip? If you're trying to get swole-o-matic like Dale Brisby, then go to mountainops.com and use code Dale for 20% off. That's where I get my protein. My creatine, I use a pre-workout called Yeti that is phenomenal. They've also got your everyday energy called Ignite. So go to mountainops.com. Otherwise, you ain't no cowboy. And please use code Dale. I wear Shady Rays because they fit my face. They block the sun, they look amazing, and they're affordable. And if you use code DALE on ShadyRays.com, they'll be even more affordable, to the tune of 40% off when you buy 2 pairs. So go to ShadyRays.com and use code DALE. I love you all. Well, today's my dad's birthday. Yeah. And I was on the fence about whether I was going to ask you what it looked like that day, but with it being his birthday, and I really didn't even, because when I asked you, I was like, "Can you show up Monday?" I was looking at the day of the week. I didn't, it kind of didn't click that.
Well,
but what did that evening look like?
Because I mean, debated coming over here, and what's really funny, I I was still affiliated, you know, some with the racing and stuff, and I wondered how Dale Jr., you know,
Mm.
how he when like Schrader, who found Dale, you know, how he felt. But I got to tell you, I got to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
The hardest thing, and I told you that the other day, the hardest thing was when me and Emery were taking that bronc down that fence. You know, when I jumped on that roan, and I'll go back to the story, but the hardest thing I remember, and I thought of you boys, and I thought somebody, because they were working on it. I hate to say that, but I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Here's how the whole scenario went. It was cold as hell that day.
I know. Yep.
Dale, I've never, you know me, you've never seen me in a pair of baggies in how long,
Mm.
you know, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason it was cold. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put these baggies on now. It's cold, you know. And about 4 broncs back there talking, you know, just sitting back there with all them, Coke and Emery and all them. And rodeo started, you know, 2 or 3 bucking horses had win, I guess. And I'm standing looking at the crowds, you know. That was when the announcer stand was still in that corner there. And, you know, and I'm dodging horses and talking, you know. It was before, now you stay out of the arena during the barebacks, you know. But for some reason I was out there. We never knew what was going to happen at Sammy's anyway.
Yeah.
I love old Fat Cat, but,
Yeah.
you know, it was always an adventure. And I remember talking to the crowd about far from here, that wall. And for some reason, something started me. I turned around because they went by me, you know, heading to the bucking chutes, making that round. And I mean, I'm telling some, you know, hey, they're introduced. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, whoa, look out, you know, and they go around the corner there. And about 10 seconds later, here comes old Ronnie to me. And he stands by me. And I'm like, and I look around and there's, you know, it's sad to say there's your dad, man. You know, and I was like, and then I'm thinking, and the Bronx still running around and, you know, he's trying to get him hemmed up. So me and Coach about the same height. You know, he wasn't very tall.
Right.
I remember. And so I just jumped up on that old roan and went, clucked him up, but I had baggies on, you know, so it wasn't that bad. It'd been hell in shorts, you know. So I go down there and we pin that bronc down there at that end. And you know, they had that little party deck down there by the calf box and stuff. And I remember down there and nobody was partying, man. We just had him down there, and it seemed like I kept that bronc down there for an hour with him. I said, what do you want to do, him? He goes, why don't we see if we can ease him down that side, you know, because people running out. I thought he got kicked. I really did, because there was no way in hell that Coke was going to fall off a horse.
Yeah.
You know, and I really thought he got kicked or, you know, got the flank hung, fell off, we was going to be laughing at, you know what I mean? Son, you know.
Yeah.
And when I walked down through there and I saw him working on him, that haunts me.
Yeah.
You know, is having to, you know, and I remember what we do with the horses and, you know.
Right.
I didn't think, you know, I thought, shoot, he had a spell, you know.
Yeah.
It just, and I'll tell you this, I've never put on a set of baggies since then. That day.
Dang.
Never had never have I put on a pair of baggies.
Dang.
Not anywhere, you know, and just thinking about y'all. I
Yeah, you
guess,
bet.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, because we were buds from you riding broncs
Right.
all the time then, you know. I don't think you'd won but 60 bull riding championships by then.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, I loved him. He was a cowboy.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other night at the rodeo at Athens, because I knew it's coming up, you know, the anniversary of that every time. And somebody said, well, what a way to go. And I said, you know, there's been 3 times that 2 of them I really remember was him doing what he wanted. Last thing he saw was that flank. He got the flank off.
Yeah.
The other one was Rex.
Mm.
You know, I was there for that one. I know. That's what I'm saying. I remember, thank God I caught the end of the flip, you know, the wreck. And I was the last person to say anything to him. There was about 6 pickup men out there, because it was that cowboy challenge where they had the rope, ride a bronc, you know, and Ty was the bronc rider. And I was sitting there talking to Amanda Corley, but why wouldn't you? You know? And I hear her scream, and I turn around, and all I see is ass over tea kettle, horses going everywhere, because Bottoms was pushing him, you know.
Yeah.
And Rex reached down to get that hack rein, and the horse stumbled. everybody dogpiled him. You know, there was nobody's fault. There was nothing that could happen. Everybody was in the right spot, you know, and it's just a freak deal.
I didn't know Rex, but he, I mean, we knew of each other, but he made sewn latigos, and he made the latigos for the flanks, but then he also would make latigos that would, like for a saddle, and he would sew and weave that between the, kind of like on a billet, except it's just one layer of latigo for, you know, your front cinch. And I had never seen it before. And so I made a video. I bought them at a show, and they just had his name on there. And I made a couple of videos, and I said who made them. And he said he had sold so many of them that he sent me a set.
Oh.
And it was like right before he passed. And so I got a set of his latigos on my cactus saddle. And
well, I'm glad you used them.
yeah,
you know what
I think
mean?
I'm going to take them off of the saddle.
Well, you've used them though.
But
you know,
for sure.
that guy, you know, he lived over in Medicine Lodge.
Yeah.
And there's a little ways over to the ranch, you know, and breed them every day. He wore them boots. He'd go over there. He handled them colts so good, man. You know, and every day he'd ride by there. Robbie, how the hell are you? You know, that was his thing. He'd sit on that porch. It's a funny story. You know, the song Weakness that Ian did. And I can't remember the other guy's name. That's what happens when you have all these concussions. That song, I Got a Weakness for them old swayback horses. Song,
Yeah.
You know? That's Rex's. He did it. Play that song about all them swayback horses. So I'd play it. And he loved the last verse where it says, money's come hard for me and everything. You know, I never sing that last verse. I always let Rex sing. And I always say that, you know, before I do that song, I said, yeah, I'm going to let Rex sing this one up in heaven. This one's dedicated to him.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was the two hardest memories I have in the arena, you know. I thought it was so cool, though, that you went back there and picked up.
Oh, man. 1 year later, it was also May 2nd. I think it was a Friday night.
Yeah.
But and I picked up the first bareback rider, and it was Clint Cannon. And he and Clint were so tight.
I know.
And so but it was on the same horse 1 year later. It might have been the first perf.
You didn't ride that roan, did you?
And I rode the roan, and he is a bronc. I still got him.
You do not.
And he still bucks every now and then. Matter of fact, we almost made a shirt, and it was gonna be a silhouette of me on him, and it was gonna say "Picking up Broncs on Broncs," because you ride him, and he's a bronc.
You ain't kidding. I mean, it just happened to be that. When I didn't know that, I wasn't even thinking about it. You know?
He was not my
That'd
dad's
have been
most.
all I need to get the bucked off right there.
And that's what I said. I was like, dang, he couldn't have picked like a more gentle horse to be, because now all of a sudden this horse means so much to me, but he's a dang bronc. Nobody can ride him. And
he didn't buck with me. Maybe he knew. He knew.
But he had with him that day a bay horse. And I let Clint Hale take him, and Clint Hale picked up on him for years. And then he also had a paint horse that, you know, like they all get cancer. Yeah. Well, anyways, that next year I went back, and some of the tack had wound up in the Catalina Cowgirl because he was there by himself. I usually went to Helotes with him.
I remember seeing you there the year prior. Remember?
But I always went to Helotes. But I had just picked up all of Sammy Andrews' rodeos as a bullfighter, and I was still riding broncs, but I was also fighting bulls, and I had all of Sammy's, and so I went to Paris with James and Sammy.
Is that where y'all were?
And so I was in Paris.
Okay.
And it was cold there too. And when I got the call, I was tying in a bareback horse, and I baggies, paint, and I had my phone in my shirt pocket, and the judge, I was tying a square knot, and this judge was like, how's Jacobs doing, you know? And it was 2013. He had been to 2 NFRs by then. And I was like, oh, he's doing good, this and that. They're in Helotes. And I was like, oh, there's the redhead now. Because he was there that night, and he was calling me, and he was like, hey, man, your dad. And so I told Sammy, I was like, man, y'all are going to have to do this one without me. I went straight out the out gate, and anyways, jumped in my little Volkswagen Jetta and drove all the way to San Antonio. But so anyways, a year later, I'm picking up, and
glad.
it was so neat, you know. And I was there, and I think now by that point, Sammy Andrews had it. So this
Yes.
would have been May of 2014.
Well, there's still Mike Baffles.
And Mike is
Yeah.
announcing.
Great.
And
I miss him.
I miss him too. And anyways, some of my dad's tack, because nobody knew
Right. What
whose was what,
We weren't
what was
worried
what.
about tack.
No.
right
Yeah, the
then,
last thing,
Dave,
like, who
you know?
cares?
Yeah.
On the night of. Well, a year later, I'm like, man, it'd be neat to have it. A year later, I kind of care, you know. And so I went in that Catalina Cowgirls trailer where it had all ended up. And these girls were so rude to me, and I was like, look, and they were like, well, and they were this one girl in particular, she was so sassy. I was like, all right, y'all can have it. I don't care. And I just walked out. But anyways, that was a sidebar, whatever. But
No, that's it.
I was like, whatever. I'm
remember
looking for a
the
dead
Catalina
man's
Cowgirls.
bit in here. You know what I mean?
You know what was really weird? And I'll tell you this, and you know this too, and you're going to laugh. Your dad getting hurt was so strange, but you knew one of the Catalina Cowgirls was going to take a wreck. Everywhere they went, they crashed.
Yeah, that was funny.
Hell, it wasn't no big deal for the helicopter to land. You know,
Yeah.
that was one thing when I was trying to figure out how to get everybody's horse they were going to land there. You know, and
Yeah.
it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I've often wondered when you went back in that arena. I think about, you know, because I'd only been to a couple races, you know, like that one with Earnhardt. Now, I wonder how Dale felt, Dale Jr., going in that corner just like you did picking up. Did it? Were you?
It was surreal. It was cool, you know.
Okay. I'm
like
glad.
it was,
You know.
yeah, no, it meant a lot. Like I remember the
In
day
the same category
and
as
then
that, you know.
picking up Clint, and I've picked up a lot since then. And so even then, like I'm not, and that horse is not push button. So I was pretty nervous, you know, and
Sure.
and so that distracted me a little bit in a good way. But yeah, I think that it meant a lot to me. And of course, you know, Sammy Andrews and James, you know, they were like, you know, you can do whatever you want out here. You know, you can stop the rodeo if you want. Like they were cool about it. But
you know, there are some cool stock contractors out there, aren't there? There's some guys that get it, you know. And in the respect of your dad, though, from them,
for sure. And
you know, he was an ag teacher, is that or what?
Yeah, I mean, he, you know, growing up, he started working the D-rig chute for Charlie Thompson when he was 14, and worked his way up to, you know, just essentially out into the arena, you know, flank a few, trip latches, and then, you know, became a pickup man, bullfighter, and then got to where got his CDL. And so he did everything for Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Charlie was basically the start of his, and then anyhow, and then when we moved down around the College Station area, well, back in that day, he would pick up a little for Benny.
Right.
And Benny would always give me like a little extra grace at his rodeos because he knew my last name. And he picked up a little for Harry. And my uncle, he and my uncle would pick up for Benny. But anyhow,
Nice.
When we moved late, you know, what year was it? But he got to where he'd pick up for Stace.
Mm-hmm. He's a hell of a hand, man.
And then every now and then for Sammy Andrews. But and then Sammy Catalina only had 2.
Sure.
So he picked those 2 up. But
Navasota in there, wasn't it?
yes, yeah, Navasota
They got a
and
long 10 building.
Helotes.
You can land a plane in that big sucker.
And
I did both those rodeos with him.
Brian,
Not Navasota, Brian.
yeah,
Brian,
Navasota. He had 2 pro rodeos, I guess is what it was.
Brian and Sammy was from Brian,
Navasota.
too. Was right there somewhere, wasn't he?
And then he did do Navasota because that was an AMI, but that was an AMI rodeo. But
right. But you know, I don't know how you recover from that, but I think maybe going back in that arena.
yeah,
You know?
man, and there for a while I went back to that every year. And I remember this one guy, he was like wanting me to go somewhere in Bernie or something. And he was just as make an appearance as Dale. And I was like, no, I gotta go to Helotes, you know? Yeah. And it was a couple years after Pop died. And he asked me what I'd charge. And I was like, well, if I'm going to miss Helotes, I'm going to charge this much.
Helotes.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and because I want to go to Helotes,
Sure.
you know. And he was like, I told him $2,000. That's what I told him. I was like, if I'm gonna miss Helotes, I need $2,000. And he said, well, you just need to know they're gonna have them rodeos without you. And he said, I need you to show me how you're gonna make me $2,000 in tickets. And I was like, I don't need to show you anything, and you need to know you're going to have your rodeo without me because I'm going to Helotes.
Adios. Yeah, good.
And, I've tried to go back every year.
Some of them aren't cool. Some of them are cool. Committees like that.
The first year I didn't go is I had a second back surgery like in April or March, and so now I miss it most years. But I hadn't been back in several years there. I do miss it.
I do too. That was always a fun little deal, you know. And I've been there where it rains so hard. Oh my gosh, that's always something going on there, you know. Dick Betters and I were good friends. He hired me there many times, you know. And that place has really grown. You know, it's done good. I just hadn't been part of it. Just, you know, I did it a bunch and then I didn't. You know, it's kind of like you and stuff. I loved it's been about a year ago when you did the Wolf Pack.
Oh yeah, right before maybe the 24 NFR.
That was one of the best. What about them birds?
What a crew, man!
You don't know the thrill. You can't imagine the thrill I had of.
Yeah, you were in their heyday.
They lived with me. I mean, on the road. I mean, literally in my RV, there was 6 of them, and it was Tommy, Will, Wes, Kane, sometimes Royce.
Kane Riddle, Royce Ford.
Yep, Kane and Royce sometimes. And then it was always Wade and Ty. And they would be in a red brand van.
Yeah.
Did you know that they stayed with me for about 3 months? I'd be at the rodeo like Caldwell, you know, and they would go yonder way, and they'd go to one over here, and then they'd go over here, and they'd always come back next morning. I knew they was back because you know why? Every morning when they'd come in, there was 2 30-packs of Keystone. I never bought a beer. And not one time in all that time with 7 guys and me in that camper, I never had to go, God dang, boys, look at this thing. Everyone, the only one I had to get on was Tommy for vacuuming at 9:30 in the morning. I said, you got to wait till 11, man. We were
That's funny.
I got to tell you a funny story they didn't tell, though. So, you know.
Oh, yeah. They held back a bunch.
It's okay. They needed to.
For sure.
At Caldwell one night, we were set up camp there. You know, like I said, they were in and out, but they were there that night, middle of the week. When the governor, Butch Otter, was up there in that top. I don't know if you want to call it. They had a deal up top there. Governor was in there. And he had a little old cute wife. You know, he's an older guy. He looked like Charlton Heston. And I got up there, and Donna Keffler introduced me to him, you know. And we got to visit, and next thing you know, we're drinking beer, me and the governor. And he wasn't the kind of guy that, you know, he has an entourage around him like these highfalutins. He had one dude with him, and he'd say, I got to go pee. He said, you want me to go with you? Nah, I think we're okay here. You know, and he was packing, you know, with him and his wife. We get through there, and he said, I hear you play the guitar a little bit. And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, this thing's over. I'm going to go down there and pick a few songs with you. I'm like, yes, sir. And I remember looking over it. He was such a nice guy, and I'm getting to this story, but look out over there. And he said, next time you come to town here, you need, because that rodeo was up on a hill, you know, you can overlook. And he goes, next time you come to town here, said, you need to come stay with me a few days. And I'm like, okay, but I can't get in the governor's mansion. He said, I don't live in no damn governor's mansion. He said, you see them lights down there at the bottom of the hill? He said, I rope till about noon every day. And then I go in there and sign some papers and come back.
Dang.
And rope. I mean, he was cool. So that night we had stayed up with him, and we had a lot of beer. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, I done went to bed at 12:30. You know, people park all around you, you know, like, so there's this little car. Nobody noticed anything. There's a little car parked there, you know, had to be the old Escort GT, you know, it reeked of cool menthol 100s. And I go to bed, and the boys had went to bed, and we always in that first camper. I had one with a copper bar that looked, we left the door open because the air conditioner would work both ways. You know what I mean, through the deal, and you could see back there, and they had them let down bunks. So I'm about get good into sleep, and all of a sudden the door comes busting wide open, and I had a train door, if you remember. I mean, on my deal, it was a slide door, and I put a train door in there, and I had it hook latched, and this all of a sudden, wham! And I thought it was one of the boys. It kind of woke me up. I'm like, what the hell? And this guy comes up my steps. There's 3 steps up there to my bedroom. Where's Teresa? And I went, who? Teresa. I know she's in her car's parked out front. And I went, dude. And this guy goes looking in my closet, in my bathroom, in my shower, over the bed. And I'm like, dude, there ain't nobody in here named Teresa. Well, her car's parked out front. And I went, get the hell out of here. I said, he ain't. Then I find out he goes over to John Squirrels. You remember Squirrel? He was a Dodge rep. He's from out that way. And John had a trailer. He had a stock trailer. He comes in the back of it, and he had his 5-year-old kid in there. So he goes over there, and I'm kind of awake, and I see the boys, and they're like, who the hell was that? And I said, some drunk looking for his girlfriend, Well, she ain't in here. I said, I know. About 2 minutes later, this guy comes back in the trailer. And when he did, my dad was a police officer, and he had a sawed-off shotgun. If you'd have dropped it about one more time, it'd have been illegal. I mean, it had a barrel. It had boom, boom carved in it. It was a pistol grip, like a Terminator, And that guy come back up them steps looking again. When he did, I got up in my drawer tails now. And I stuck that shotgun to his forehead right there. And I walked him back down them steps, turned him and down the steps and shoved him out that door. And I said, let me tell you something, mister. The first time you come in here, I'll call it a drunk mistake. But the second time you here to hurt me and my friends. And as I'm walking him down I'm Dirty Harry, I see here's little Willow and Wes, and they're raised up in the beds. And all you could see, and Tommy was up in the top bunk, in the inside. All you could see was the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
So the next day, we got up 10 or 11, out there having coffee. And Teresa's car's out there, and the tires are busted. They're slit. So the cop shows up. Well, Teresa got back. I don't know where she was or who the hell she was with. The cop comes walking up, and he goes, excuse me. And I said, yes, sir. He goes, I just wondered, we have a complaint, and, this guy, I need you to identify this person. He said, I know, I heard he was causing trouble. We got him in jail, and we just, we're making a case. And he shows me the mug shot, Dale, and there's a red ring. The exact size of a 12-gauge shotgun right there in his forehead. And he's like, in his mug shot.
That's
I'd
hilarious.
give $1,000 to have that picture up on there. Me and Wes was talking about it the other day. He said, do you remember a red ring? That's what we called him.
Dang. I bet you could get it. It's public record.
I'd love to get it. I got to find out, man. I mean,
you could nail down the date and the time, and that's public record, baby.
I know, but it had a big old ring right here on his old forehead. He looked like this.
What year would that have been?
2011.
Yeah, so maybe people. I mean, you get a mugshot these days.
I didn't
It's
think about it being August,
moments later. It'll be on social media.
Oh yeah, trust
But in
me.
2011, it wasn't quite that quick.
Right, you might have to get the old, but it was a paper copy.
Oh,
of
I don't
it,
know.
But he was like, "Oh, I'd
it
love
might
to
be
have that.
digital.
I'd blow that up big as that."
Well, it might be digital, but it just wasn't. These days, like
so funny
what was it? What's his name? Zach
We look
Bryan
at that picture. We all three look at that picture, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's the guy." And then you hear Wes going,
Yeah,
because he had that old. He said, "Boy, you did have it stuck in his forehead, didn't you?" It's scary. That was the summer that you can't replace.
Yeah.
I got banned for life from Puyallup because of the party I threw.
Attaboy.
Yeah, and funny about that, it was the last rodeo of the year. It was what they call the Gold Tour finale, or rodeo. But the guy that ran was a banker, you know, and he was like, you know, if you want me to go play golf, okay, as a committee, say, hey, you dumb hillbilly, we've got a case of beer, grab you up 4 of your buddies and let's go play golf.
Right.
I'm in, buddy. I can't get to clubs fast enough, you know, and I suck at golf. I can do it enough to stay in a committee, you know. And this guy, Robbie, per page 7 dash little letter C of your contract, it requires you to be at the golf tournament and have a foursome. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there. I had all the boys. I had a sevensome. We had 2 golf carts. Drunk as a boiled owl playing golf. Best golf game I ever had in my life. We didn't give her, you know, we have this hellacious party that night. And I knew this guy was going to be trouble just because he wasn't cool. You know, he wasn't like this usual committees. You know, that come over. Now, they're all committees from the garbage picker upper to the car parkers are welcome at my house. So that night at the end of the rodeo on Saturday night, Ricochet played, Heath Wright and them, you know. Heath's a big rodeo fan, you know, and he's one of my best friends. And he was with them. They played that night. Well, he just stays with me, you know, that night. And we had this party. It was so good that the 2 Wright dads are Cody and Jesse. Is that right?
Jesse's an uncle, okay. Or brother of Cody. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
so they're the stud colts of that whole blue outfit,
you're right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, they had so much. We'd had so much fun. I wake up the next morning. The rodeo's at 1 o'clock, and at 12, they are still rolled up in one of them Walmart carpets. That's before I had the patio in a little Wright burrito, asleep. And people are stepping over them, and the boys, I mean, and they come in 2 or 3 times, you know, our liquor license is not appropriate for this and all that. You know, you have to have a quarantined off here. Well, I had some caution tape for that. I just made me a big old party pad there. You know, we had 180 people there. It's the greatest party ever to get banned from somewhere. I mean, it was on. Heath playing, the band, you know, everybody. This is great. And that's kind of what I've been known as, you know.
Yeah.
After parties. I go get my check the next day after that rodeo. And I go up to this top floor deal, and this guy pulls me in this room, a little bigger than this room here, with a check, and pulls me in there, and he goes, "Oh, Robbie, if you ever plan on coming back to this rodeo, I'm going to need you to apologize to this board of directors here for the party that you had last night." And I thought, boy, it was a hell of a deal, wasn't it, man? We had a great time. You know, I thought he was, you know, kidding with me. And he goes, "No, I'm serious." I said, "You're serious about this?" And he goes, "Yes, it's very inappropriate." I said, "Oh, okay." And he's all these guys, you know, they're all sitting up there. And I went, and only thing missing was, "Gonna tell you a little story about the Harper Valley PTA." Remember that song?
Yeah.
Down. Because I said, "You talking about the party that guy was at? That guy drank all my beer. That one there's wife puked in my commode and on the ground out there that I cleaned up. He pissed in the floor. He fell down the steps. Look at his elbow." And I said, "Give me my damn check. You won't never have to worry about me." I said, "It's the last rodeo of the year. Perhaps you should have had a better party." And I reckon the boys saw it going down, or somebody come down there to gripe, you know. And because I look out the window and I see Jeffy with an eye. You know, Jeff Skaggs. Jeff Skaggs used to run the pro rodeo truck.
Okay.
Well, they ain't nobody got trucks anymore because you sell all the merchandise. You know, PRCA used to have a merch truck. And it was Jeff. And Jeff didn't have but one eye, so we called him Jeffy with an eye. And he's backing up under my camper because my truck was outside for something. We left it outside so we can get back and forth, you know, if we need to go to the store or whatever. And Jeffy's hooking up to my camper, and I snatched that check out of my hand. I walked down that steps. It's me walking out there. I just got banned from Puyallup.
Dang.
And them boys, they were sitting down there on the deal, rolling up stuff, you know, getting out there. I said, "Why y'all getting it ready?" "Oh, we heard." We went right out the gate and had another party.
Attaboy.
And it was the second best party that's ever been because everybody was laying over because they were going to, you know, they were going to run up and go somewhere else. Well, Monday morning, I got a phone call. My grandpa died. And the reason I'm telling you the story is how cool them boys were.
From who?
Some folks that my grandpa had died. My mom and my brother.
Oh, gotcha.
My stepbrother called and said, your grandpa, he was a veteran, and I mean, he'd lost it, and he was in a nursing home. We had to, just to keep him safe. And so they called and told me, and I said, boys, this was Monday morning after that Sunday night party. And I said, boys, I hate to tell y'all, but I got to fly out. I said, y'all take Bullet, my dog, which they took him anywhere. And I said, I'll be back. Just bundle everything up. I'll come back and get it. And I got on an airplane to Seattle, flew home on Wednesday. And I'd had a half a week off there. Somebody had come in, maybe Rump was coming to do part of Pasadena because out there. And Wednesday night after the funeral, I get a phone call from Wes. And he said, you got your flight booked? I said, well, yeah. I said, he goes, change it. I said, why? He said, well, Heath stayed with us. He sent the band home, and he stayed with us. And what we did, we just took your rig, and we're rodeoing it back to Pasadena for you. And I said, you got to be kidding me, because I was dreading that I was going to have to drive 30 hours thinking about my grandpa.
Yeah.
I mean, he raised me. He's the greatest man ever lived, in my opinion.
Yeah, last thing you want to do is see a highway.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I got to fly back out here, get this damn thing, and drive.
Dang, that's
when
super
I got
cool.
there, they went to Pendleton, got Heath a back number so he could sit in the grass, because Heath would quit singing. God, I hope he don't. He's, he's the greatest voice I ever heard in country music. And great guitar player, and they took him. Well, Kane has a fear of hitchhikers. He has a bad hitchhiker phobia. Well, there wasn't enough room where all them boys, and Heath included, so they ride in a camper. And that one you could get around in a little more. This new one, you're either in the kitchen, there ain't no bathroom, you could get to everything in that one. So they're back there with a bottle of Pendleton, and he's playing music and everything. Well, Wes was driving the rig, and they pulled over.
Tilden wasn't with him, was he?
Tilden wasn't there yet. He hadn't started
Okay, cool.
yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I don't think, they may have been. I don't know who, there was 10 of them, two vans.
Well, I just know that Tilden's got a story about getting a hitchhiker into a camper, and anyway, whatever.
Well, that may have been.
Maybe he was. I don't know.
And but they picked this hitchhiker up and he said, you ain't riding up here. You got to get in the back. Well, Kane's back there. And they opened that door and threw that hitchhiker in there. Kane looks like, you ever seen a cat with a snake?
Yeah.
They bow all up. And they said Kane rode like this for about 200 miles. He said, old guy's like, can I have some of that whiskey? He's like, I don't want you giving your whiskey away. I said, you're just lucky you're in a, that's what Heath was telling me. He said, you're lucky you're in a, you're not riding in the back of the pickup truck. And they took this old hitchhiker and picked him up. But they went to Pendleton with my rig. They went by and dropped Heath off in Denver on the way to Albuquerque. He said, we were so late at Albuquerque that we just parked in front of the building, where the entrance, and we used your house as a...
To get ready.
Yeah, as a dressing room. We were all taping up. We was rotating out. We about didn't make the dang show. And the next day, they turned out at El Paso so they could get my rig to me.
Dang.
When I got there, man, the awning was out. The burrito and the dog were all just sitting there waiting on me, man, and they had moved on. And I knew right then that was the Brotherhood that, they counted me.
Yeah.
That was a badass crew.
I didn't make the short go at Pendleton. I was one hole out, and so I jumped into the camper with Matt Bright, Sam Spreadborough, and Will Lowe.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
And,
Aborigine.
Yeah. Long story short, I'll just tell it. I'll make a long story long, but I had to stop by the gift shop because I was like, hey, I'm coming to Pendleton. I want all this. You
gotta go to the blanket.
You gotta have that bumper sticker, the classic bump. So I got a bumper sticker, got a t-shirt, got a keychain, and I think the only place where I went wrong was putting on the T-shirt in the gift shop. But anyway, I jump in this rig and they saw me coming a mile away, and we go, up that big hill. You're leaving Pendleton, and Matt's driving because it's his rig. Sam starts drinking, and Will's in the front seat, and I'm behind the passenger seat. And about midnight, Matt's like, "All right, well, my shift's over," and Sam says, "Well, I'm drunk." And about 5 minutes before that, Will had gotten in the camper. So the last thing I'm going to do is wake up Will.
Right.
So I drove the graveyard shift from about 6 p.m. to midnight to 7 a.m.
That's a tough one when that
Well,
sun
then
comes
Will
in.
gets up, and he gets up there, and he starts telling stories. So I'm not going to go to sleep. And I just listened to him all the way to Canyon. And when we dropped him off, I was like, "Man, I think the way it landed, I owe you money for gas." And he's like, "Nah, don't worry about it. It'll all come out in the wash." And I can remember that gas station in Kenya where we dropped him off, and he said that. And so anyways, I told him that story on the podcast, and he had driven from wherever, and I went to pay him to be on the podcast, and Tom and Wes were like, "Nah, no thanks." And I went to hand it to Will, and he was like, "Oh, thank you." Took it and walked off.
You got even, didn't you? That sucker.
He didn't say it, but I was thinking like, dang, he was right. It came back around.
Got it. Them guys, I rode bareback horses pretty good. Me and Sosby. It's hard to believe, but Sosby's world champ, and he's spur one.
Yeah.
I was very lucky in '94 when I left, just going to them little regional ACA rodeos over by the house in Georgia.
Yeah.
I jumped in there, and him and Milburn and Mike's dad and all them, they took me right in, man. And we've been this. Cody Sosby gave me my first pair of baggies.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, they were diamond cuts.
Were they his normal pants at the time? No,
Actually, yeah. Yeah, he had to shrink them. No, he was a mixed martial arts fighter.
Yeah, he's still an athlete.
Yes, I mean, but he was pretty trickery. So one time, Cody's bad too. Like when we were to IFR together, I made IFR that year, and we went. He's always bad about jumping into bed, because we all stayed in the same hotel about half the time. We'd party all about half the night. That's the first time we ever got thrown out of a bar and thrown back in it the same night.
Yeah.
And at the hotel. But about 1 o'clock, we'd lay down, take that rodeo nap, and then get up. Well, Sosby's bad to jump into bed naked with you. And then you were on top of the covers where he'd get all the room, and I'm over there. So I said, I'm about sick of this. I'm going to fix this sucker. So Ross Dotson and Craig Cooper were in the room. They were on the other bed. Well, here's Cody, and he's like, you can hear him, I said, come with me. So we reach over there, and he's good and asleep. And I took that old red clock on the wall. We go sleep for the perf. And I just bumped that clock up to about 7:45. And we sneak in the bathroom. And I just knocked on the door and just closed that bathroom door. We're sitting there going, so yeah, what? Well, so he goes to open the door, and that ain't nobody here, and we're not there. We're hiding in the bathroom. And he comes down, people, I tell you, oh my God, I missed it. I've missed it. The rodeo started at 7.
That's hilarious.
And he comes out of the corner, that clock says 7:45, and there ain't a bag one in the room. And he thinks he is, and he comes over and he is crying, and then he realized that he wasn't much fun for the next day.
That's hilarious.
I said, I'll get you jumping in bed.
Dang, I can picture that so well because I was in
Jolly. Oh my God, I missed
fighting bulls for Smiths at Sonora, and Rory and me and Sosby shared a room, and we snuck over there to get that 1 o'clock nap. And I remember laying in bed listening to him snore.
He's just but he's just so jolly, man.
Yeah,
that's the guy.
No, I love Sosby.
We always
shout out to Chicken Mafia.
Oh, please, yeah, I have Chicken Mafia all over. They used my sound system a couple years ago at the, when they first started. Let's actually make the Shark Tank fun instead of everybody walking around all crispy. This is the most crispy you'll ever see me. I booked more rodeos in a Piggly Wiggly T-shirt and a pair of flip-flops. I wouldn't even go in there. I was kind of like John Payne, but a little different, And they borrowed my sound system I had because I was playing the show out there. And I've come back and had chicken mafia all over, and I still got them on all my
That's
stuff.
funny.
But, you know, those guys back in the day, we all had a job in our little big five group we had. You know, John got us some money. He always wanted to go to the rodeo right behind John.
Yeah.
My God, he's the first 2,500 a perf I ever saw.
Right.
You know, and Rump would get us the rodeos. Sosby was he was our cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, was, you know, I was the rebel rouser. I'd be the guy that stand up in the meeting, throw my card. You know, they'd say, Robbie, start this. We need to address this. They always didn't want to lose that reputation. Well, I already had it as a wildcat anyway, you know, and I'd be like, this is bullshit, you know. And they'd even John would say, this meeting sucks. Let's rally it up a little bit. Oh, my God, you know. But we all had a job then. And Sosby was always he was our cooler. He was like, nah, we don't need to race too much. You know, he was our anchor. And the year that he got the finals, he was the last one of that group, you know. I'll never forget, I was at the Clowncation when we found out. And Sosby was home, but me and Rump and John and all them were there. We're in Jamaica. Every one of us, the first thing it was 2016. And
When John lost his.
no, it was 14 when he lost him, you know, when he lost the baby. I'm going to tell you what, till you built the casket for your best friend, that's a bond you can't break. I don't care. Rodeo is second, will always be.
Yeah, you bet.
To that brotherhood, you know. And you think you're having a bad day, you know. But that day, every one of us got a call. We were all in top 5, you know, get the finals. And the first thing on the phone, hey, Robbie, this is Sarah. I said, did Sosby get it? And she paused. She goes, you're the third one that I've called that was the first thing you said.
That's funny.
We wanted him. He was like the little big brother, you know, that we wanted.
So it was you, Sosby, Rump, John.
John, Matt Tarr had just gotten going in there, you know.
Gotcha.
And it was quite a brotherhood.
Yeah, that's
we
neat.
did a lot of good rodeos, and we'd rotate them, you know, because we were all. First time I met Rump was that the year I had the finals. He was sitting over there. You know how everybody gathers at the square bar, you know,
for sure at South Point.
Yeah. Well, we had just left the awards banquet. I didn't give a shit about awards. Sorry, but I didn't care. I was doing the NFR, and I was the first nobody bullied kid that ever had the NFR. You know, this is the greatest thing ever. And me and So's were celebrating. And back in the Piggly Wiggly shirt, and I'm, wow, you know, and I look over there. You know how there's 2 bars? There's that one, and there's one nobody goes to.
Mm-hmm.
And Rump and Ash were sitting over there. And I'd always, and I said, is that? He goes, yeah, it's Justin Rump. I'd never met him. You know, I knew his dad, and I'd probably run by him, you know, but I never. So I walk over there to him, and him and Ash are just sitting there talking by themselves at that other bar. I'm like, I went over and I said, hey, man, I'm Robbie. I said, it's a pleasure to meet you. Congratulations on getting your card, you know. And I was, you know, I hear you're hilarious. You're going to do big things, you know. And I said, but can I ask you a question? I said, what are you doing over here? Why are you by yourself? He said, well, there's some guys over here, and they kind of saying that I was Benny's truck driver and that I'm undercutting them. And, you know, I just prefer not to say, come with me. Come on. And I had clout then, you know what I mean? I was top of the food chain there that year, you know. I said, nah, this ain't how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And this was before we'd got the brotherhood, you know. And I said, I walked right over. I ain't going to say their names. You can imagine who they are. And they're standing over there, you know, look like a race car with all their Wranglers. They didn't have a sponsor, you know. They just looked the part. And I said, I ain't saying the name, but I said, what'd you make your first year? Well, I mean, I said, it's a very simple question. I'm standing right beside me. What'd you make your first year? Well, you know, it was about $800. I said, well, okay, let's bump it to $1,000, you know, for times. This kid's getting $1,200 a perf right now, his first year. Shut up and leave him alone.
Yeah.
I said, quit being that guy.
Yeah.
To him. Y'all treated me like crap. When I had it, I was the first nobody. You know, I had the finals 4 years after having my card. That was the shortest span of ever having it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like them picking on Rump, and they do. And for the longest time, that stupid Cowboy Channel fan group that's always on there, and they just bash him. Boy, I'll fight them in a minute over it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I
He's
don't
so
either.
funny, such a good
Oh my
heart.
gosh, yeah, he's
such a
just
nice guy.
Big old mushmelon, you know.
He's
John's
funny.
a smart one out of there because he's always quiet. He's the guy that ain't gonna get nothing. You know, he's the halo. You know? But boy, it sure is fun when they said, "Who'd you have there last year?" John Harrison. Okay, put a couple zeros on that check.
Yeah.
You know, we all had a job in there. You know, and I was a protector of them young guys when they came in. You know, I was a rebel rouser a little bit.
Yeah.
Can't fight, but I could use it here. You know.
Yeah, you bet.
But this rodeo has given me. I was a very bullied kid in Atlanta. Had nothing, man. Nothing. I was 3rd grade to 8th grade was the worst years of my life, you know. When I got back and I moved back to my little hometown and started riding bucking horses because I was too small to play football. If it wasn't for rodeo and I ain't no telling where I'd have been, you know, or what had happened to me. I'd have off myself probably. But, man, when I got that confidence riding them bucking horses, won a couple state championships, everything I ever wanted to do in my life I've done. I might have done a little unorthodox for most of them, and you've heard that a lot about. You know, to me, that's the saddest part of this game. Is all they had for me was this stigma of how I'm not kid friendly, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, Robbie, and it's funny. And Mickey the other day, he was doing that funny because that really happened. I knocked Mickey G out.
Yeah, I believe
you know,
it.
and he said, you know, when you get Robbie, and I do, I lean a little bit, but, you know, lend me your ear for 2.5 hours and forget about what I say. You
Yeah.
know, I'll probably get less letters than anybody in this business, but that's all they had to hang on this new guy that slipped up in there and got the NFR. But by God, I got it for working the barrel,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But that's the hardest part of this is people thinking that, you know, the rumors and the stuff about how wild and stuff. Yeah, we have some hellaciously good parties. And there ain't every rodeo that needs Robbie at it. But there's some that want to have a good time that do. And we have parties. And like I told you earlier, I invite the garbage picker-upper. I invite the car parkers. Because there's people take their entire vacation.
Yeah. To
You know,
volunteer.
To volunteer. And I've always had beer flowing. I had a kegerator in there. You know, my camper looked like a bar. And there's always some music playing. You know, I mean, and you may have a celebrity. And I walked in there one day and I had Mark Matejka from Leonard Skinner, Heath Wright from Ricochet, and Johnny Lee from Johnny Lee sitting in my camper at Fort Smith playing music. 100 people out there, you know. That's the times that I remember this, Dale. Not, you know, I've got a lot of great memories. I got some bad, you know. I got some times where I felt like I got left out. But, you know, at the end of the day, like Blue Jeans always told me, you're like a diesel motor. They've done everything in the world to try to shut you down. It don't. Just, you know, next thing I know, I got 40 rodeos. And I'm seeing the end of it. I'm seeing the changing. Rudy Burns told me one time, the first year that Rudy didn't get on the Coors Man in the Can, I thought that was the biggest travesty of justice there ever was. He's one of the greatest barrel men ever. And he wasn't on that list. And that was back when I thought you had to be a barrel man to get on that, instead of popular. And I called him. I said, I'm going to take my name off that list. I said, it was a year that I had the finals. I said, I've got everything I need. I got the finals. I'm taking my name off that Coors list. And he looked on the phone. He's like, dude, are you stupid? And I said, no. I said, I just, you know, it's an honor for you to be on there. You know, if you ain't on it, it ain't the right list. And he goes, let me tell you something. About every 15 years in this business, there's a changing of the guard. You know, we were I call them Gen 2. Gen 1 was Wick Peth, you know, Quail his first years, you know, Bunky and all those guys. That was Generation 1. And Rudy and them were Generation 2, you know, when we were Gen 3. And he said about every 15 years, there's a changing of the guard in this thing. And you can do two things. You can help them young kids, or you can be angry as hell that you're not getting them shows. And then what have you got? You're an angry old man without any rodeos. Nobody wants to hang out with you. Nobody wants to be around you. And you're mad as hell at the young kids. And, you know, honestly, I've I've experienced some of that getting older, you know. But and then one day I relegated back to that. I said, I'm gonna embrace this as Louis Fields sitting in the. I've been to the finals, you know. When I go to the finals, first couple of years I was like, well, because I felt like they took it from me when they changed that vote, and I know why they did it. Because I'd have had it for a few years. They don't want to let me do that. But now I sit in that stands like an old retired used to do the NFR guy, and I enjoy it so much more. And I watch Dusty come up this year and do it. You know, and Dusty and I worked IFR together. He was a bullfighter and I was a barrel man, and I embrace that side of it. Because I listened to what Rudy said, you know, you either can get pissed off about it or you can go help and be remembered as a cool old guy and be, you know. And I went that route. I tried, you know, and I enjoy watching these new kids come up. The greatest joy I have in this business, Dale, is them kids calling me and saying, Robbie, what I need to do with that barrel, what I need to, you know. They probably don't call some of them other guys. At least they call me. You know, I get 5 a month. First thing when I walk up there or see them, I sneak over and watch them work, you know, pat them on the back, tell them they're doing good. That's what Rudy did with me, you know, and it was successful. And they almost act surprised sometimes because they're so used to people just, well, you ain't no funny, you ain't no, you know, if you just, an old black man told me one time, said, if you'll be nice to people, good things will happen to you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I ain't always been super nice to everybody. You know, I mean, I've tried. But when I leave this business, they're going to know we had one hell of a good time. Yeah. And that, I'll take that as my legacy, you know, where, you know, some people, I didn't have to have 10 NFRs, which is great. John Harrison is the perfect NFR barrel man. He's perfect for the job. He goes down there and gets him when he needs, you know, and I'm so proud for him. He's one of my buddies. You know, I want him to do good. He called me last year, and when Dusty got in, he said, I can tell you this, and I shouldn't tell our secrets, but he said, I'm relieved. It was getting people were hating me because I got voted in. What are you going to do, not do it? Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I wish you could have got, you know, they just gave you the world championships every year. You didn't even go to the finals. I mean, I wish you'd have got to experience it one time.
The monotony?
The monotony of, why would you want to be in 10 places? You can win so much more money not going to that thing.
Yeah, you bet.
So I was always proud of you.
Well, I just usually went to the bigger shows.
Well, yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah. Do you remember when I first went to work with that podcast and I interviewed you and that? You were one of my first interviews, thank God, with the NFR Extra.
Oh, yeah.
I interviewed you there, and we laughed.
I forgot
and
all
it drove
about
those
that.
guys crazy because they hired me to be Robbie, but wouldn't let me be Robbie. So I didn't last very long. You know, it was like, you know, I'll be talking to Sage. And we're like, Sage, you remember at Greeley, we were there and we were camping out there, and my son was there, Reed. Everybody loves Reed. You know, Reed's a little socially awkward sometimes. He don't like to get out much, you know, but when he goes to Vegas or whatever, they just kidnap and take him, you know. And he's about the same age as Sage. And I remember I couldn't find Reed one day. He was about 17 or 18, and he had to be 18. He's maybe a little younger. And Sage had him in there playing Madden football.
Dang.
And he beat the hell out of Sage. And that was always his. Like, I knocked out Mickey G. That was his. I beat Sage Kimsey.
That's funny.
Sage always, and I would tell those stories like that of stuff that actually happened on the road. Sitting out there talking, they'd be like, Robbie, people don't want to hear that. Sage, what was it like when you won your first world? How many times have you been asked that?
Exactly.
You know, and then you get the NASCAR cookie cutter answer.
Yeah, that's what Cody Johnson said the other day. He's been playing shows for 22 years, and he get in an interview, and somebody's like, what got you into music? And he's like, well, I mean, come on.
Let's get a generic
22 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that guy's done good, ain't he?
Yes.
Good for him, man. That's, you know, it's nice to have rodeo people doing other stuff.
Yes.
I always thought that was a cool thing with actors and stuff like. Maybe that's why I took up guitar, you know, because I mean, I am a rodeo clown. That is my job. You know, I'm not a rodeo entertainer. I have to be at certain occasions, and I'll say, he's a rodeo entertainer. You know what? To little kids, I'm the rodeo clown. You know, back to that, my daughter said one time, said, Dad, you know, I always hear when they say, oh, you're Robbie's daughter. Ooh, that's wild. He's wild. And, you know, you got to watch old Robbie. And then they end up sending their kids with you. You know, I never understood that. You think I'm the wildcat and the raiser, but then you send your kids for 2 weeks with me.
That's funny.
You know, but I hope people see, you know, when it's all said and done, yeah, I'm rowdy. But I get bored very easy. You know, I can't stop. This is fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's every day's fun. It's a new adventure, and especially when I was living in that RV, it was somewhere different every week. You know, I can see me calming down a little bit with this house, but the house looks like the old camper bar now.
Yeah,
So, you need to come over and go swimming.
yeah.
Well, there's 9 lakes between here and there, though. Where do you go to the lake?
I mean, I don't go to a lake very often, but I know that. I mean,
Possum Kingdom, I guess. Is that close?
well, Graham, you pass Graham
Oh,
Lake,
yeah.
and everybody always goes to PK. So if I go to a lake, it'd be Graham, just because
yeah,
it's
they'd be
so
aggravated.
empty.
Yeah, and there would be so many people. Yeah, wanting your autograph.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
I
you
mean,
get it.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, how many times did you beat Rocker doing the
All of them.
ski and stuff?
All of them.
That's it. Yeah. You know, I'm glad you did step aside. I'm really worried about this barrel man thing.
Yeah.
That you're,
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to let you have it.
can I at least keep my 2, you know, barrel man of the year deals? Here's the
I'll
problem.
let you keep the ones you've already won. No guarantees
They
on
tried.
the future.
They wanted. You know, Farley called me the other day, and he was pretty sad because we co-won. You know, there's 2 barrel men for those bullfights in PRCA. He called me. He said, "Man, they call wanting to give that back because you know Dale's fighting bulls now, and they're going to retroactive your world championships."
Isn't that crazy?
You know, just let me keep the buckle.
Yeah,
I can lie.
There you go. I'll take the coat, though. Yeah.
Okay, you can't have a coat. It's pretty cool. It was really cool.
We normally wrap these up with life advice. What's your life advice?
To these young kids,
There you go.
protect your
Yeah, somebody
head.
coming up.
Protect your onion. You only have one, and I'm telling you, what goes on up here a lot of times. Yeah, it was worth it. Pick your battles. You know, nowadays it's not as required for you to get killed off in that barrel like it was when I was coming up. Protect yourself and go see the biggest ball of string and go to Niagara Falls. You know, drink beer and have fun. Don't unfun yourself out of this business. Remember your friends. You know, a guy told me one time, if you can have 5 friends in your life, it'll help you hide a body. You think about your 5 friends that help you hide a body. 1, 2, and 3 are simple, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kept 4 of those friends, and Blue Jeans didn't live by me. He's the 5th, you know, or first out of the 5. He's one of the 5. I kept 4 of them guys within a half a beer on a Snapper Comet lawnmower from my house.
Yeah.
You know, remember your friends. Don't step on anybody's neck to get to the top of this, because you're going to roll that barrel out of that NFR one day, and then it's going to be over. And what you've done and what they'll remember you by, everybody's a good rodeo bullfighter. You can have, there's thousands of them. They ain't, be a good people. Let them remember you. And that's what I try. Let them remember you. Hey, that guy had fun. Remember the name, there was a bronc called Good Times. Bill Federson. He just died recently. They named the horse Good Times because of they got him from Bill. And that's what he was. Good times. Make it good times. Will told me one time, we're the brotherhood of the people that want to have a good time. You know,
Yeah.
You know,
That's what these rodeos are. They're a little party in each town.
they are, and you have such a chance. And remember this too. One more thing. To those people, this is their NFR. It doesn't matter how little or big that rodeo is. You know, it's easy. Well, you know, I'm not saying use the old cliche. It doesn't matter if there's 5 or 5,000 of them. Somebody's working their ass off at that rodeo to make it good. And to them, that's the best rodeo of the year. So make the next one you do the best rodeo you ever did.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do. You can walk through that gate. You ever notice that in our game that walking through that gate stops a lot of problems, doesn't it?
Mm.
When you walk
Yes.
through that gate, even with what happened to you, you know, with Pops and
Yeah.
walking through that gate, that's my solace.
Yeah, you bet.
You know, and I've been through a lot of, you know, self-inflicted relationships and losing friends and parents. But boy, when you walk through that 4-foot walk through right there to start, it all goes away.
Yeah.
Savor those moments.
Yeah, you bet.
You know, thank you so much. I miss seeing you all the time, man.
Man, thanks for coming out. Yeah.
I'm proud of you with that barrel.
No.
We're going to make sure that you're taken care of.
Yeah.
There.
No, I'm excited about the next one.
Me too.
Cool.
I'll be there on the 29th. Y'all need to check that place out.
Yeah, go check out Bucktown, Jam at Bucktown. The 15th, the 29th,
I'll be at 29th with you.
May 14th or something, and then like May 27th.
You remember when we turned them cows out? The other
Golly,
and
that
I
was
was
the
like,
funnest
turn
part.
3 out.
That was the funnest part.
I know. I was like, turn 3 at a time out. And JB's like, no.
Yeah. That's funny.
You stood me up about 30 times. I'm sorry I hogged the barrel, but I need to get back in the game a little bit.
No, I get it.
Man.
I get it, especially with them calves.
Oh, it's fun, man. I felt good again to get back because I haven't got to do it because, you know.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm back, boys.
Yeah.
So thank you for this. Enjoy.
You bet. Well, thanks for coming on. You
always
guys check
got a
out
place, man.
RodeoTime.com, and we'll see you at Buck Jam at Bucktown.
You bet.
Pow, pow.